Hey everyone, so today we're gonna go a little bit backwards and take a look at the envelopes. The two envelopes on the Subharmonicon act a little bit differently than on many other synths, so I want to make sure that we touch on some of their uniqueness and show you some creative ways to play it. So I'm going to explain how the two envelopes work and cover some basic information like why it's important to have an envelope on a filter as well as an amplifier. In the end, I hope that you have a really good understanding of how the envelopes work and also how you can use those creatively to make different textures and sounds. All right, let's go take a look. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the two different envelopes, one for the filter and one for the amplifier. Each of them have an attack and a decay, and the filter envelope amount is controlled right here. So just to give a basic overview of what an envelope is and why you need two of them, when I was first learning, it really helped when someone explained it to me as similar to photography, where the amp is similar to the camera shutter. The filter is similar to a filter in photography where you put something in front of the lens to block or color the light. So theoretically, you could have a dark enough filter that it completely cuts out all the light, and it doesn't even matter if the shutter is still open, you would get no image. And that would be similar to like turning the cutoff all the way down or the envelope on the filter all the way down to the point where you don't get any sound. If we turn our envelope for the filter off and have just the amp open, it would be similar to like a camera that doesn't have a filter and is just opening its shutter. So let's start there. By turning the cutoff all the way up, it's essentially not going to color the sound at all. And by turning the envelope amount to 0, these won't have any effect on the sound. So when I play the trigger, that's the sound that I have dialed in. So let's take a look at what these attack and decay knobs do. Some envelopes have an attack stage, a decay stage, a sustain, and a release stage. ADSR envelopes, these only have an attack and a decay. The first knob controls the amount of time it takes for the sound to build up to its highest level. Once its highest level is hit, the decay is going to kick in. And this is the amount of time it takes to go back down to 0. So if you have a fast attack, it instantly goes up to its highest level. And then if you had a really fast decay, it would instantly go back down. So it's only sustaining while I'm holding that trigger down. The second I release it, it goes away again. If I were to play this sequence, you're only hearing clicks because it's not open long enough to actually hear a sound. But let's try turning the decay to a moderate level. This means that the sound will go to its highest level and then slowly fade away. And if we want to extend this, it'll take even longer. Almost to the point where it bleeds in. Hear how long that hangs out there as opposed to fades away really quickly. So if we turn our amp to that longer setting, let's add a filter envelope on top of that. So we could turn our cutoff down, and that controls the sound. So notice how right now, when the envelope is at 0, because you can turn the filter envelope to negative, or you can turn it to positive. So at 12 o'clock, it's set to 0. Now notice when it's set to 0, these have almost no effect at all because there's no envelope. So as you turn the cutoff, there's no change. You can still use the cutoff, but there won't be an actual envelope to the filter. I explained this in my DFAM series, but if you didn't watch that, let me explain what's basically happening. As you turn this up, the envelope is going to modulate the cutoff, going up a certain amount at this speed, and then going back to the amount that you had set it on at that speed. If you hear, it goes up to right about here, very fast because the attack's fast, and then it slowly fades back down to this. So it'd be just as similar if this were off for me to manually go. I of course can't go that fast, but let me see if I can. So that would be the same as if this were off and I would do it manually. See how they sound the same? Another thing to pay attention to is since my decay on my amplifier is longer than the decay on the filter, what happens is it goes back down to this level, but the sound still carries on. These two control the amount of sound that's coming out, and these two control the color of it. I frequently like to play with very fast attacks and moderate decays. It gets a nice kind of plucky sound. But if you wanted a more brassy sound, you could simply turn up the attacks. It's really all taste. And that's pretty much how most envelopes work, no matter what synth you're playing. But the Subharmonicon has something that's a little bit different than most. So typically speaking, no matter how long the decay is, every time you push the trigger button, it re-triggers the envelopes. And as you're playing a sequence, you can hear that plucky sound right at the beginning, and it cuts off the decay stage and restarts it. So that's what happens every time a trigger goes through. And most synths are like that. And even if you have a slower attack, oftentimes if you hit a trigger, it will re-trigger the envelope and you'll start from zero again. With the Subharmonicon, it doesn't do that. And that gives us some really awesome ways to play things. So if you have the attacks up and the attack stage hasn't finished, when it goes through a new step in your sequence, it's not going to re-trigger the envelope. The tone will change with your sequence, but you're not going to hear that plucky sound, or it won't start off the gradual rise again. It'll just continue on with this attack stage. So that gives us this awesome opportunity to make these huge swells while the tone is still changing. Check it out. I'm going to turn it fast first. And you can hear that plunk every time. Now let's turn up the attack. So it creates these wonderful pads. And if you notice, even though you can hear the tones changing, you're not hearing that plunk right at the beginning. But there's also some cool things that you can do with turning down the decays to very fast amounts. It creates this neat ramp. You can have them go at different times. Maybe even set it to a little bit faster. So that's just one way to play it that's really cool. Another thing that I like to do with envelopes a lot, that's not just the Subharmonicon, but really any synth, is to turn the attack really fast, a moderate decay, turn the envelope up pretty high, or even as far as it will go, and turn the cutoff way down. It gives it almost like a really nice vocal quality. And of course, this envelope amount gives a really nice modulation source. So when we get to the patch bay, we're going to talk about some ways you can use that as well. So I hope you found this helpful and that you get really creative with your envelopes. In the next video, I'm going to go over the patch bay and talk about some creative ways to patch the Subharmonicon. So there you have it. Again, I really appreciate all the positive comments that have been coming in. It really makes doing these videos worthwhile if I know you're out there. I have a Patreon page set up, and there's already a DFAM patch book up there, and I'm currently working on some patches for the whole sound studio and some for just the Subharmonicon. So if you want to check that out, the link's down below. It's about $5 and you get access to all the PDFs, and I update it monthly. I'd really appreciate the support, and I hope you check it out. Either way, make sure you like and subscribe. All right, see you next time.